So, welcome to our session number one of this book study. Before we begin, a few acknowledgements. Whatever I have understood on the subject, the the root knowledge, the sort of the opening of my mind to this subject has come from Guruji, Master Chokoksui, and of course all the other acharyas, the senior pranic healing mentors who have guided me. And of course, we have to be very grateful to the Theosophical Society because it is because of their work that this book becomes available to us. A little bit about the author. He was a bishop actually, so he was a member of the Christian church community. But then later he's well known less for his Christian work and more for his theosophical work. He was a very powerful clairvoyant, and he was one of the early people in theosophy. And he's written many books. Some of them are very interesting. I remember, I think last year we did the book of The Masters and the Path. So I really recommend. That is another very good book that he has written, The Masters and the Path. उसको आप कर सकते हैं. All right. So let's start on the book, The Power and Use of Thought. Page number 1. Those who are ignorant of theosophy sometimes suppose it to be merely a system of speculative philosophy. By the way, इसको हम word by word पढ़ेंगे. We will be reading this text word by word, and I will assume that most of the words you understand. But if you are interested in some word, or in discussing a word or understanding more, about some word, then please just type a message here or something like. Or once I think everybody who has to join has joined, then I will allow you to unmute also. Okay. All right. So those who are ignorant of theosophy sometimes suppose it to be merely a system of speculative philosophy. You understand speculative philosophy? Speculative means something that is based on speculation. Speculation क्या होता है? अंदाजा. In Hindi you can say अंदाजा. कि जो काम अंदाज से चलता है उसको हम बोलते हैं speculative. Like many people say that the stock market is very speculative because people place sort of bets. कि हाँ ये स्टॉक चढ़ेगा ये चढ़ेगा. Of course there is basis also. They study the company's performance, this, that, and so on. But you may be aware right now in India, the stock market has gone to record high level, although the economy is not in very good condition. Why? Because people are speculating that when things will get better, the market will, everything will get even, the prices or valuations will go even higher. So they are speculating, right? You understand? Speculative. So what they're saying is that people who don't understand theosophy, they think that it is based on some speculation. Nothing could be farther from the truth than this. There is nothing in any way speculative about it, for it is founded entirely upon observation of facts and upon experiments made in connection with the phenomena and the forces of nature. So when you say that, essentially you are saying that it is like a science, because that is the characteristic of science. Science के विज्ञान की क्या characteristic होती है कि ये it studies, it observes nature, and based on that it makes some theories, and to test those theories it does experiments. So what he's saying here is theosophy is like that also. From its study emerges a practical rule of life, a rule which cannot but affect the thought and action of its students at every moment of their existence. Now he's saying that this is very important study that they do. Why? Because science eventually doesn't tell us how to live life, but theosophy, according to him, also tells you how to think, how to live your life. This is chiefly because it involves a study of life as it really is, so that its students become acquainted with the whole of the world in which they live, instead of knowing only the least important part of it. All right. So what he's saying is that it's better than science. I mean, according to him, this study is even better than the study of science, because what we know as science is it only studies physical phenomena, like physical world ko hi study karta hai. But this, he says, the whole of the world. And as pranic healers, we know that there is more to the world than just the physical world. Correct? And why does he say least important part of it? The physical aspect. I think if some of you have had an interest and have done more studies into theosophy, into spirituality, even if you have done the soul course and so on, you realize that the invisible, non physical world is much bigger and much more important than our physical world. Yes? So you can unmute yourself if there's something that you would like to ask or say. They are led to understand the laws of evolution, and they naturally learn to live intelligently in accordance with these laws, and to take into account the unseen part of the world as well as the infinitesimal portion which is within reach of the limited physical senses. So he's saying कि जो लोग theosophy, people who study theosophy, they understand the laws of evolution. Now there is one law of evolution which even science students learn, which is what Charles Darwin. Darwin, have you heard the name Charles Darwin? He gave the theory of evolution. He wrote a very famous book, The Origin of the Species, or The Origin of Species, something like that. And he has given the world this whole explanation of how the physical world has evolved. But when they are talking about here, they are talking about evolution as we pranic healers understand, which is to do with the soul evolving, the purpose of life being for the soul to evolve. Yes, I hope I'm not speaking Greek. Are you able to understand what I'm saying? मैं
जी
मेरी भाषा को आप समझ पा रहे हैं मेरी my you I hope you are able to follow and understand what I'm saying. Yeah, okay, all right, thank you. You can keep your cameras on if you like. It's good to have somebody to look at and somebody to interact with. All right. So where were we? So what he says is, once you learn theosophy and what theosophy teaches, को आप समझते हैं, then the way you live your life, also you start aligning your life with the laws of evolution and so on. Yeah. And infinitesimal essentially means tiny or very small part. So not only the physical senses, but the rest of the world also. That also you understand कि उसके क्या laws, what laws govern that, and you can then learn how to align your life with those laws. Of the general nature of the unseen world, I have written elsewhere. For the moment, let us concentrate our attention to one of its most striking characteristics, the ready response of the finer types of matter of which it is constructed to the influences of human thought and emotion. So what we are talking about here is, so what he's saying here is, there's a lot to talk about. When you talk about the unseen world, what does it mean? Unseen world, the non-physical world. So there is a lot to talk about. There's so many things over there. You could talk about angels, you could talk about emotions, thoughts, vagera, vagera, things like that. But he says in this book, we are going to focus on one of its most striking characteristics, one of its most, let's say, relevant aspects. The there is some, okay, I think a diagram here may be useful. Let's bring it in front of us. Can you see the screen? Okay, this is the book that we are talking about. Are you aware of these planes of nature? Yes, so I mean, it's not possible for us to go into a lot of details about this, because then the time we have for the study of this book will go into that. Just understand कि पूरी जो सृष्टि का निर्माण हुआ है, it has broadly been divided into 7 planes. Planes मतलब levels, स्तर. हर स्तर पे there is matter and there is pure energy with consciousness, or what in this book Guruji has said, purusha and mool prakriti. So जो सृष्टि का निर्माण हुआ है, that is by the combination or the mating or the union of pure matter and pure energy with consciousness, or what we call God the Mother, God the Father. When they mated, this entire universe has been created, or this entire creation has occurred. What we know as creation has occurred. Now everything is some amount of matter or some quality of matter and some amount of pure energy. जो ज्यादा मैटर है कम एनर्जी है उसको हम वी नो एज फिजिकल ऑब्जेक्ट्स, फॉर एग्जांपल द बुक, योर फोन, this device and things like that. If you look here on the lower thing, usually the world we are familiar with is the physical world, or isme bhi there are 7 subplanes, and in the lowest 3 subplanes is the physical world that we are aware of, comprising of the solids, the liquids, the gases, and so on. Okay, now above that, the next plane is where our emotions are. Again, matter, particle, and energy. This is matter which is what we understand, the इसके जो vibrations होते हैं, those we understand as our emotions. So I am happy or I am feeling happiness. So what does it mean? It means that within me this matter is vibrating in a form that I understand as happiness. Okay, now I am thinking something, whatever. So I am thinking, I have some thought, मैं कुछ सोच रहा हूँ. What does it mean? ये जो next plane है, the mental plane. Why we call it the mental plane? यहाँ का जो matter है वो उसके vibrations are what we understand as thought. Yeah, just a quick primer, because अगर आप, if you already knew all this, I'm sorry if I you wasted time, but just in case somebody is not really familiar with this, this is what he is talking about over here, and we will talk about it in, we will mention it again and again. तो ये थोड़ा सा बैकग्राउंड को आप याद रखिएगा. ठीक है जी. जब हम थॉट्स की बात करते हैं, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट वाइब्रेशंस इन मैटर, दैट मैटर बिलोंग्स टू द मेंटल प्लेन. Are we okay with this? Anybody not okay with this? No? Okay, all right, then let's move forward. So, it is difficult for those who have not studied the subject to grasp the absolute reality of these forces. Now, when he's saying absolute reality, what he's trying to say is that this is very real. It is not something imaginary. It is not something based on, faith or belief or something like that. He's saying very, very real. To understand that they are in every aspect as definite in their action upon the finer type of matter as is the power of steam or electricity upon physical matter. So it's as real as that. You've seen, you you pass electricity through some physical object, it brings a definite effect on it. Or you use steam or heat or this and that. So वैसे ही जो ये planes हैं, the astral plane, the mental plane, and in our case we will be more focused on the mental plane, they also have similar phenomena. They also have forces that they will respond to, the matter in these planes. Everyone knows that a man who has at his disposal a large amount of steam power or electrical power can do useful work and produce definite results. Right? We all know that. But few people know that every man has at his disposal a certain amount of this and higher power, and that with that, he can produce results just as definite and just as real. Now we are getting into something very powerful, because with electricity आप एक मोटर चला सकते हो, एक पंप चला सकते हो, अपनी कार चला सकते हो, things like that. But with here, what you can do, is what, have you heard of the book, the best-selling book, The Secret? The Secret? Yes. So that is what we are talking about. The secret is that with what you think will manifest. If you've heard about about Master Choa's course, the Kriya Shakti course. Why am I not seeing the chat? For some reason, I don't see. I saw something pop up to say that there is a message, but I can't see the chat now. Anyway, maybe in the long gap, I've forgotten how to use Zoom. So while on this image, there are actually some more images. So what they're in this image, what they're trying to tell us, that the entire world that we know is having material at these many levels, and our human endeavor is to grow spiritually. That means जो higher levels हैं उसमें अपनी consciousness को लेके जाना है. All right. Another aspect of this is to understand who we really are. So you are coming from God, the divine spark, into the higher soul, the Atma, and then taking up the body, or the various bodies. And which are the various bodies? These are our various bodies. The physical body that we, of course, you can touch and you can see, and then the etheric body, which we use in pranic healing, or which we have learned about in pranic healing, and then the emotional body, mental body, which, if you have done the psychotherapy course, you have at least come to know about it, or if you've done the soul course, then you come to know all of them. And ये जो courses मैं बता रहा हूँ, ये नहीं किए हैं तो please जल्दी से कीजिए. They are very very important and useful courses. Yes, you can take screenshots, not a problem. By the way, everything that all the images that I am presenting here, they have come from the net, from the internet. So you can as well get the originals from the internet. Okay, where were we? So I was talking about Kriya Shakti, the secret, the book called The Secret. All those are, they are examples of what is possible by way of power at these levels, the mental level and so on. As matters stand at present in the physical world, only a few men can have at their disposal any large amount of its forces, and so only a few can become rich by their means. So in the physical world, there are limitations. How much money you have, how much resources you control, is all limited. Correct? And of course, the word rich here is used in a wider sense than just money. But it is a prominent feature of the vivid interest of the unseen side of life that every human being, rich or poor, old or young, has already at his disposal no inconsiderable proportion of its forces. So when he's saying that at the lower level, physical level, there are limitations, what you have or what you can get. But at the higher levels, everybody, doesn't matter who you are, आपकी उम्र ज़्यादा है, कम है, आप गरीब हैं, अमीर हैं, it doesn't matter. There is a substantial amount of the resources of the higher levels available to every person. And therefore, the riches of these higher planes, which are obtained by the right use of these powers, are within the reach of all. And that really is the purpose of this book. The purpose of this book is for us to become aware what are the powers that become available at the higher level and how to use them. So hopefully this book will help us through that. Here then is a power possessed by all. So everybody has it, but intelligently used as yet by few. Not many people are aware of it, so not many people make good use of it. It is surely well worth our while to take up the matter, to inquire into it, and to try to comprehend it. Indeed, there is even more reason for so doing than has yet been mentioned. For the truth is that to some extent we are all already unconsciously making use of this power, and because of our ignorance, we are employing it wrongly and doing harm with it instead of good. Now just think about it. Anybody here who never thinks? Everybody thinks. Anybody in the world who doesn't think? Everybody thinks. Somebody has estimated that each person has about 50,000 thoughts every day. Maybe you heard 60,000, maybe you heard 40,000. Whatever it is, it's a very large number. तो अब आप सोचिए कि इस शक्ति को हम प्रयोग तो कर रहे हैं. वी आर मेकिंग यूज ऑफ दिस फैसिलिटी, बट वी आर जनरली ignorant about it and therefore not using it in the best possible manner. The possession of power always means responsibility. So, in order to avoid doing harm unintentionally and in order to utilize thoroughly these magnificent possibilities, it will clearly be well for us to learn all that we can on the subject. All right. So, I hope you will stop me if there is something you want to discuss. Otherwise, I will just proceed. What then is thought and how does it show itself? Those who have even a superficial acquaintance with theosophical literature are aware that man possesses a vehicle corresponding to each of the interpenetrating worlds of our solar system. That is, astral body is the vehicle of his desires, passions, and emotions, and that his thought expresses itself through that higher vehicle of still finer matter, which we usually call the mental body. So I refer you to the screens that I had shown a little while ago. Now, important point here, each of these energy bodies is actually interpenetrating each other and the physical body. So please do not get the impression that this body, which has been shown, the emotional body, which is shown in green here, it is only starting after the etheric body has ended. No, it's not like that. This has started also from the center. I hope you are understanding. And because it is finer, it extends beyond. ये तो आप समझते हैं ना, that what is more subtle will penetrate what is less subtle. No? Let me explain. In a jar, you put some stones and then you put sand. Will the sand pass through the stones and find its place? Yes. Then you can put water. Water will further, find its space. Why? It is finer than the stone. It is finer than the sand. The sand is finer than the stone. तो penetrate कर जाता है, घूम उसके अंदर चला जाता है, मतलब it passes through. But you do the opposite. You take sand and you put some stone on it. It cannot penetrate. It will just sit there. If supposing the jar is already packed with sand and now you put stones, there is no space for the stones. Correct? So similarly, in this diagram, please understand that each of these bodies is finer than the previous body. Finer मतलब उसके जो particles हैं. Again, we come back here. So जो astral body है, उसके particles. So these are the least dense, most subtle particles. Most dense, least subtle. So astral is more subtle than physical. Then mental is more subtle. सटल का क्या मतलब हुआ? उसके वाइब्रेशन की फ्रीक्वेंसी ज्यादा है, ऐसा समझ लीजिए. या ये समझ लीजिए कि जो पार्टिकल्स हैं वो बहुत जहीन है, बहुत महीन है, दे आर स्मॉलर, स्मॉलर पार्टिकल्स, लाइटर पार्टिकल्स. All right. Is it getting too technical? Are you? I hope you are able to understand. Is it too?
Yes, we can understand.
Okay. All right. Where were we? It is in this latter vehicle that thought first shows itself to the sight of the clairvoyant, and it appears as a vibration of its matter. A vibration which is found to produce various effects, all of them quite in line with what scientific experience in the physical world would lead us to expect. Okay. So I hope you are aware that what seems completely dense, or this, or my skin here, it's also particles and energy, and there is more energy, more space, and less actually matter. And if you look at the space, okay, let's not talk about that. It's not relevant. But what I'm saying is, even physical matter, or what we consider completely physical dense matter, if you look at this wood, for example, this is also particles and energy and space. All right. The only thing is the particles are so dense that to our sight it seems that it is completely, there is no energy or there is no space within it. First, there is the, so, okay, why I talked about all that. So, like matter corresponds to or responds to vibrations in the physical plane, similarly, we are going to study in this book how matter of the mental plane will respond to different vibrations. Okay, so now we are getting, now in, and also just keep in mind that when we talk about vibrations at the mental plane, we are essentially talking about thoughts. And what they are saying, what they have told us is that clairvoyants have explained this. This, it is through clairvoyants that they have studied this phenomenon. So thought first shows itself to the clairvoyant, and it appears as a vibration of its matter. So this is the important point of this paragraph. First, there is the effect. Now we will study the effects. What are the effects? When you produce thought, what happens to this matter? First, there is the effect produced upon the mental body itself, and we find that to be of the nature of setting up a habit. There are many types of matter in the mental body, and each of them appears to have its own special rate of oscillation to which it seems most accustomed, so that it readily responds to it and tends to return thereto as soon as possible when it has been forced away from it by some strong rush of thought or feeling. A sufficiently strong thought may, for the moment, set the whole of the matter of the mental body swinging at the same rate. And every time that happens, it is a little easier for it to happen again. A habit of vibrating at that rate is being set up in the mental body so that the man will readily repeat that particular thought. Now, this is a very, very important thing to understand. ये बता रहे हैं, now this is through observation. If you understand why does it happen, we don't have an answer. It is something that they have observed. What have they observed? When, Rekha ji, you appear like you are standing on your head. It's okay, it's okay. Sorry, what was I saying? Yes. So it seems that uh, the effect of thought is that it has the mental body vibrate. Now, as the vibration forms, different thoughts will produce vibrations in different particles of the mental body. Now, the mental body is not homogeneous. Homogeneous, समझ रहे हैं? All particles of the mental body are not identical. So there are, again, within that also there are denser particles more subtle या finer particles. ठीक है जी. So आपका जो भी विचार होता है वो it finds the matter that corresponds to that kind of thought, and that matter starts vibrating. मतलब ऐसा मान लीजिए that matter becomes, it receives some energy, it becomes energized. Now as you do that, you are actually forming a pattern, because the next time you have the same or similar thought, it will be easier for that same thought or that same particle or those particles to start vibrating again. You can think of it as some kind of inertia. Now, my word, this is not what they have said, but I'm just saying it's like inertia. Inertia क्या होता है? You want to, you tell somebody, why don't you go for a walk in the morning? No, I don't feel like it. But once the person starts doing it, every day becomes easier for him to wake up and put on the shoes and put on the track suit and go for a walk. Similarly here, तो जब आप कोई विचार को पहली बार एनकाउंटर करते हैं, when you come across a nature of thought, a new type of thought for the first time, it's like a resistance to change. We don't accept ideas so easily. Why? Because the particles in your mental body which will correspond to that kind of thought, they haven't formed that habit of vibration, and they are also a bit lazy. Now, if you are really interested in knowing why, maybe we'll discuss it some other time. But yeah, I can now think of a reason why. There is, so yeah, we'll discuss it some other time because that will take us on a different path altogether. So, are you understanding? This is how thought patterns form. This is how habits of thought will form. you know we are lazy at the physical level. We are lazy. It's a common thing. I mean, somebody may be more lazy, somebody may be less lazy, but we all have a certain amount of inertia at physical, emotional, mental levels. In my limited experience and observation of the world, I have found that the greatest amount of inertia, the greatest amount of laziness is in the mental level. People never want to change their they have belief, they will hold on to it. I don't know if your observation of the world is the same as mine, but this is my personal observation कि ये जो laziness है ये बड़ी समस्या है लोगों को. What the opposite of that would be an open mind, where the person is ready to evaluate, accept, or at least think about something. All right, let's move forward. So we are on page 5. Secondly, there is the effect. You see, another aspect of this is that mostly when we look at somebody and we say that person, uski personality ऐसी है. We are constantly judging people. वैसा है, वैसा है, वैसा. What do we mean when we see the person is like that? We are essentially commenting on our observation of that person's, what should I say, mental patterns. How does the person respond to mental stimulus? जब उस व्यक्ति को एक नया विचार मिलता है तो उसकी क्या हम क्या रिस्पॉन्स एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं? That is really, so that is like the personality of that person at a mental level. All right. Secondly, there is the effect produced upon the other vehicles of the man, which are above and below the mental body in degree of density. I think we will need to look at the diagram again. So the mental level is here, above and below. We know that in the physical world, disturbances in one type of matter are readily communicated to another type. That, for example, an earthquake will produce a mighty wave in the sea, what we know as a tsunami. Yeah. And again, from the other side, that the disturbance of the air by a storm will immediately produce ripples and presently great waves in the ocean beneath. Obvious? Anything to discuss here? No, I think obvious. So similarly, in just the same way, a disturbance in a man's astral body, that is to say, what we commonly call an emotion, will set up undulation. Undulation means vibrations in the mental body and cause thoughts which correspond to the emotion. Conversely, the movement in the mental body affects the astral body if it be of a type which can affect it, which means that certain types of thought will readily provoke emotion. Just as the mental vibration acts upon the astral matter, what which is denser than it is, so also does it inevitably act upon the matter of the causal body. So causal body, in this here you may not see that word, but the word buddhic refers to the, I'm sorry, the word causal is here. It's not the buddhic. This is the causal body, the higher mental body. They've divided the mental plane into two subplanes: higher mental, lower mental. The higher mental, in other words, is also called the causal body. It's the body that the jivatma, the incarnated soul, uses to store all the experiences and so on. Causal इसलिए बोलते हैं कि जो causes and effects हैं वो उसमें stored हैं. When we say our karma comes with us in every birth, it's because the causal body is storing it. Thus, thus the habitual thought of the man builds up qualities in the ego himself. The ego here is referring to the soul. The word here, theosophy में थोड़ा words का ना, you have to be familiar with the words. So the word ego they use is it refers to the higher soul, not the incarnated soul, not the jivatma, but the atma. So इस पैराग्राफ को अच्छे से डिस्कस कर लेते हैं. So the first thing is they are giving you like a example कि जैसे there is an earthquake in the sea and it causes a tsunami. Tsunami, you remember India was hit by a tsunami in 2004. The entire eastern coast was hit by a tsunami. Why? Because in Indonesia there was a earthquake, and it created massive waves, and those waves came all the way up to India. It caused huge devastation. And also we see when there is the wind is strong, it causes ripples in the waves. है ना, जो पानी होता है अगर शांत था तो अगर तेज हवा चलेगी तो पानी में लहरें उठने लगती हैं. So what we understand is that one level of matter, when it vibrates strongly, it causes effects in the matter of a higher level and also of a lower level. And I think as pranic healers, we also understand this, because how do we do healing? Somebody has a headache, what do? You work on the energy body. You don't work on because we don't even touch. So we do sweeping on the energy body. Now correspondence. What is happening? So this and this are next to each other. In the physical, there is the complete dense matter and there is the etheric matter. So our energy body is at a level higher than the, so or maybe this will be more helpful. So physical body, etheric body, they are adjacent levels, so they affect each other. Also you see, if somebody is under stress, it may cause problems in his liver. Why? Astral body stress affects the etheric body affects the physical body. And what he is talking about here is कि जब किसी के अंदर, when somebody is experiencing a strong emotion, it is causing ripples or it is disturbing the mental body. What does it mean disturb the mental body? उसके साथ विचार भी आएगा. So जब आपको गुस्सा आ रहा है तो it is, you will find a cause in the sense of a thought. This guy did this, that is why I'm angry. Conversely, you may have a thought, oh, such a sweet person, what a nice person. Now that is your thought. You observe that person doing an act of charity and you say, oh, what a lovely person, what a nice person. Now it is also producing an emotion of maybe love or gratitude or something like that. That is what they are trying to tell us here. And then what he's saying also is that because the mental body is adjacent to the soul aura, or the causal body, and the causal body lasts with us for many lifetimes, or no, I mean, throughout our throughout all our incarnations, the causal body will remain. तो जब आप मेंटल बॉडी में कुछ करोगे, वो आपकी कॉजल बॉडी या सोल बॉडी को भी चेंज में भी चेंजेस लाता है. Now that is very important, because if our purpose of living is to evolve spiritually, then we have to understand that our thoughts have the greatest impact on our spiritual development. I repeat, because the mental aura can affect the soul aura, activity of the mental aura, which is our thoughts, are the instrument through which the soul aura can get affected. Therefore, the most important factor in spiritual development is how we think. Many people, I come across a lot of people who say, खाना आपको सात्विक खाना चाहिए, जो ऐसा तामसिक खाना होता है या राजसिक खाना होता है, उससे आपकी स्पिरिचुअल डेवलपमेंट पे फर्क पड़ता है. So I think what I'm eating is affecting the physical body. Physical body से उसका असर कुछ हद तक आएगा etheric body पे. Then some effect will be there on the emotional body, and then some effect will be there on the mental body. So is that very important? No. Again, Guruji, Master Choa has given us a very clear guideline. What has he said? One of his very nice quotes is, what comes out of your mind and mouth is more important than what goes inside. What it also tells us is that I have will. Somebody may be causing agitation to me, बट मेरी मर्जी है कि मैं एजिटेट हूं या नहीं हूं. और अगर मैं एजिटेट होता हूं, तो देन आई एम अफेक्टिंग माय स्पिरिचुअल डेवलपमेंट, राइट? If I get mentally caught up with somebody, then this is my foolishness, because it is affecting my spiritual development. Okay, let's move forward. So far, we have been dealing with the effect of the man's thought upon himself, and we see that in the first place it tends to repeat itself, and that in the second place it acts not only upon his emotions but also permanently upon the man. The man meaning the Atma. The real man is the soul himself. Now let us turn to the effects which it produces outside of himself, that is, upon the sea of mental matter which surrounds us all, just as does the atmosphere. All right. So again, if you remember the diagram of the bodies, so those bodies are there, but the matter or at all planes is around us also, right? Like the atmosphere, so it's matter at the physical plane, but it is inside us, it is outside us also. Similarly, mental matter, emotional matter, astral matter, inside us, outside us, inside us as our bodies, outside us also. So he says, now let us see how our thoughts affect matter which is outside us. Thirdly, then, every thought produces a radiating undulation, vibration, waveform, something like that, which may be either simple or complex according to the nature of the thought that gives it birth. This vibration may, under certain conditions, be confined to the mental world, but it may also produce an effect in worlds above and below. Same thing, right? If the thought be purely intellectual and impersonal, for example, a mathematical problem, I think that's the example is given. If, for example, the thinker is considering a philosophical system or attempting to solve a problem in algebra or geometry, the wave sent forth will affect merely the mental matter. Why? Because that thought has no emotional energy. That thought is pure mental energy or mental matter, right? That's not the usual thought. Usually our thoughts have a certain amount of emotional energy. Yeah. Again, Master is in one of his books, he's given us these examples of several thought forms, both positive and negative. So if you've done the psychic self-defense course recently, in the book, you must have got this. I said recently because when I did the psychic self-defense course, the book that was given to us didn't have these images. If the thought be of a spiritual nature, if it be tinged with love or aspiration or with deep unselfish feeling, it will rise upwards into the realm of the higher mental and may even borrow some of the splendor and glory of the intuitional level, a combination which renders it exceedingly powerful. If, on the other hand, the thought is tinged with something of self or of personal desire, its oscillations at once draw downwards and expand. Expand here is work out, or express most of their force in the astral world. So we are talking about an emotional expression. Again, look, let's look at one of these here. So what he's saying is कि आपने कोई विचार किया. Now, if that thought, can you see there are many in the mental plane? There are many subplanes. One thing to understand here is, which is by reading between the words, unselfish spiritual thoughts, they are of the higher level of the mental plane. हमने ये देखा कि every thought, the matter, it has an effect on different matter. Now which matter depends on the nature of the thought. So unselfish, or when you say I must help the world, I must help other people, I must do, what can I do to help other people? Or spiritual, I'm a child of God, the soul affirmation, for example. When you do that, when that thought is occupying your mind, the mind is producing vibrations which are of this level. On the contrary, if you are thinking, if your thinking is very selfish, nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying, if you're saying, okay, this, what's in it for me? मेरा क्या? मुझे क्या फायदा होगा? मेरा क्या नुकसान होगा? You are thinking, right? Calculating what's in it, what's my gain, what's my loss. It is likely that the particles that are being put into motion are of the lower level of the mental body. In fact, in the Indian system, they, you know, because this is the aspect that is most likely being used, they call it Kama Manas. In the Indian system, this is the Kamakosh. I'm sorry, this is the Kamakosh, and this is the Manas, or the mental body. So they will say the word they use is Kama Manas. So thoughts heavily tinged with selfish emotion, something like that. Okay, anyway. Anything here? Any question? Anything to discuss? Anything you'd like to share? No? Okay, let's move forward. All these undulations act upon their respective levels, just as does a vibration of light or sound here in the physical world. In the physical world also there are many vibrations, and for example, this works at one level which is different from light, which is different from sound. जो आपको एक फोन से दूसरे फोन को हम कम्युनिकेट कर पाते हैं, it is because of vibrations that go through one phone to, we go out from one phone and into the other phone, but they are of a different level. And for example, the light through which you are able to see me, that's of a different level. You are hearing my voice, that vibration is different. They radiate out in all directions, becoming less powerful in proportion to their distance from the source. Yes, that is obvious also. You light a bulb, the further you go, the light becomes less. As you go further away from that, the light becomes less. So if you are trying to read something and the light is not enough, you come closer to the source of the light. Why? Because you get more light. But we should remember that the radiations affect not only the sea of mental matter which surrounds us, but other mental bodies moving within that sea. So, like you are there, many other mental bodies are there. You have a mental body, other people around you also have a mental body. So, what they're trying to get to is that you think you produce vibrations in matter, they go through this sea of mental matter and will also affect other people, which is what we will study now. We are all familiar with the experiment in which a note struck on a piano or a string sounded on a violin will set the corresponding note sounding upon another instrument of the same kind, which has been tuned exactly to the same pitch. Tuning fork experiment, kabhi physics lab, yes. What is called resonance? This is what I think in physics we call it resonance. Just as the vibration set up in one instrument is conveyed through the air and acts upon the other instrument, so is the thought vibration set up in when one mental body conveyed by the surrounding mental matter and reproduced in another mental body, which, stated from another point of view, means that thought is infectious. We shall return to this consideration later, but just to give you a hint, we tell our children, I mean, I'm at the age where I tell my children, some of you may be young, that your parents are telling you ki sangat ka dhyan rakho, be careful of the company you keep. Why? You understand the reason. Thought is infectious. Fourthly, and this is why master has taught us shielding. If you've done the psychotherapy course, we learned shielding. It is to protect you from the negative thoughts that other people are creating. Fourthly, every thought produces not only an undulation but a form, a definite separate object which is endowed with force and vitality of a certain kind, and in many cases behaves like a temporary living creature. So I hope everybody here has done the psychotherapy class. Otherwise, it's hard for me to go into. But just understand that each thought, it has form, it has energy, it has a certain amount of consciousness. So it is like a living entity in some ways. In some ways, okay. By the way, anybody here who has not done the psychotherapy class? Not done. अगर आपने नहीं किया है तो just say yes or put your hand up. No, everybody is done. All right, very good. So with the word we use is entity, thought entity, right? So that's the word that we use. स्मिता जी, आप कुछ कहना चाह रहे थे? Okay. This form, like the vibration, may be in the mental world only, but much more frequently it descends to the astral level and produces its principal effect in the world of emotions. The study of these thought forms is of great interest. A detailed account of many of them with colored illustrations of their appearance will be found in a book called Thought Forms. So this is a very nice book again by Mr. Leadbeater, where he's described, he was a great clairvoyant. So he's actually described thought forms. That when you are angry, what does it look like? When you are sad, so like the images I showed you, that of course the source is Master Choa, but Mr. Leadbeater many years ago, I would say more than 100 years ago, has already documented a lot of that. It's an interesting book. At the moment, we are concerned less with their appearance than with their effects and with the way in which they can be utilized. So we are more worried about the technology rather than the appearance and all. Let us consider separately the action of these two manifestations of thought power. The vibration may be simple or it may be complex according to the character of the thought, but its strength is poured out chiefly upon one of the four levels of mental matter, the four subdivisions which constitute the lower part of the mental world. Again, please refer the diagram here. So the mental body is divided into two: the upper higher mental body, lower mental body. So this has four sublevels, this has three sublevels. That's what he's talking. Most of the thoughts of the ordinary man center around himself, his desires, and his emotions, and they are therefore undulations or vibrations of the lowest subdivision of mental matter. Indeed, the corresponding part of the mental body is the only one which is as yet fully developed and active in the great majority of men. So just please pay attention here. This is what he's talking about. ये इसमें भी the lower parts are more developed in most people. Why? Because most of their thinking is at the level of what's in it for me, मेरा क्या, मैं उसने मुझे ऐसा क्यों बोला, उसने, things like that. Self-centered. As you go higher, you are going towards unselfish thought. Not only that, you are going into the world of concepts and principles. So you've done psychotherapy. Throat chakra, lower mental. Agya chakra, higher mental. So this is what needs to be developed in most of us, or all of us, or at least some of us. Most of us, our throat is reasonably well developed. But what we need to develop is the Agya Chakra, where its ability to deal with concepts, with principles. So, looking at just to give you an example, you look at every situation, any situation of conflict, two people are fighting. One thought would be, he's right, he's wrong. Right? He's right. Another thought, more at this level, will be, what is the principle that applies here? Based on what principles are they in conflict? What would be the principle that would be even higher and which will help end that conflict? Right? Something like that. Where were we? It must not be forgotten that in this respect, the condition of the mental body is very different from that of the astral vehicle or the astral body. In the ordinary cultured man of our race, the astral body is as fully developed as the physical, and he is perfectly capable of using it as a vehicle of consciousness. Now, when you say he, it means the soul. So, the soul, and usually we experience this when we sleep, the soul consciousness leaves the physical body. That's why the physical body sleeps. And we sometimes have dreams and all that. What is that? We are experiencing that at the astral plane.
Astral travel. It is
Sorry?
known as astral travel.
Astral travel, yeah. Astral travel is sometimes used when people do it consciously in the awake state. But in the sleep, all of us experience this. But yes, you're right. The astral travel happens when in the wake state we consciously shift our soul awareness or soul consciousness to the astral plane. But he is not yet much in the habit of so using it, and is consequently shy about it and distrustful of his powers. But the astral powers are all there, and it is simply a question of becoming accustomed to their use. So he's saying that at the physical level, we have learned. We have full control over our physical aspects, abilities. So, like your senses are there. So, in the Sanskrit terminology, we say Janendriya, Karmendriya, and things like that. So, you have physical abilities. We fully know them. We are able to do whatever we can with our physical abilities. Emotionally, also, according to him, we are not so aware, but our emotional bodies, the astral bodies, our astral powers are completely developed. They are fully developed. We just need to become aware. We have to learn the methods. and we can start exercising them. So, for example, astral travel was mentioned. Hmm? When he finds himself functioning in the astral world, either during sleep or after death, he is fully capable of sight and hearing and can move about whithersoever he will. Wherever he wants to go, he can travel. In the heaven world, now we are talking about the mental plane. However, he finds, so this is another name for the mental plane, the heaven world. He finds himself under very different conditions, for the mental body is as yet by no means fully developed. That being the part of its evolution upon which the human race, or that being the part of its evolution upon which the human race is at the present moment engaged. So again, if you've read some amount of theosophical texts, you would know that we are not the first human race. There have been previous. In the first one, the physical body was developed, then the etheric body, then the astral body, and for our race, the goal now is to develop our mental body. And actually, that is one of the goals of Arhatic Yoga. I don't know how many of us are Arhatic practitioners, but that is the goal of Arhatic Yoga, to help us develop our mental body, to gain more control over the astral and develop the mental body. The mental body can be employed as a vehicle only by those who have been specially trained in its use under teachers belonging to the great brotherhood of initiates. In the average man, it is only partially developed and cannot in the least be employed as a separate vehicle of consciousness. In the majority of men, the higher portions of the mental body are yet quite dormant. Dormant means not fully awake, not fully activated, even when the lower portions are in vigorous activity. Vigorous activity, yes, 40 to 50 to 60,000 thoughts every day. So there is vigorous activity, but it is unfortunately mostly at the lower planes. This necessarily implies that while the whole mental atmosphere is surging with vibrations belonging to the lowest subdivision, there is as yet comparatively little activity on the higher subdivisions. A fact which we shall need to have clearly in mind when we come to consider presently the practical possibility of the use of thought power. And I remember from the last book that we had done of Leadbeater, The Masters and the Path, he had explained that the great holy masters, who have crossed moksha, but they have stayed to serve earth. In most cases, their service to humanity is by streaming down thoughts of a higher level. Unfortunately, most of us are not able to, unless we are meditating or something, we cannot receive them, because our there is a gap between those thoughts and our ability to think. मतलब हमारा एंटेना इतना सेंसिटिव नहीं है, तो हम उनको पकड़ नहीं पाते हैं, या समथिंग लाइक दैट. So he's saying that the entire mental world it has tremendous amount of vibrations. Why? Because everybody is thinking and thinking like all the time. But higher level के thoughts कम है. It has it has also an important bearing upon the distance to which a thought wave can penetrate. The distance covered by such a wave and the strength and persistence with which it can impinge upon the mental bodies of others depend upon the strength and clarity of the original thought. Now again we are getting into Kriya Shakti, you know, क्रिया शक्ति के जो वर्ल्ड है उसके अंदर हम थोड़ा सा वी आर अंडरस्टैंडिंग द साइंस ऑफ क्रिया शक्ति हियर. What do we do in Kriya Shakti? We take a thought. The thought we are already told when you do the course is it must be a very clear and simple thought. Complex thoughts don't work in Kriya Shakti. Simple thought, और उस thought को खूब ताकत दो. How? By repeating that thought. Every time you think a thought, you add power to it. That thought form that you had created, you are adding power to it. How much energy is there? So you learn the techniques in the Kriya Shakti course, how to increase the strength of that thought form, you know. And then the clarity means how clear are you in your mind? Is it a vague notion or is it a very 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 clear thought? So for example, in that book The Secret, they talk about it that when you are having a, by the way, The Secret is a very small part of Kriya Shakti. If you want to really understand that whole science, you have to do the Kriya Shakti course. So in The Secret, they talk about that, for example, you say, I want a new house. Now, are you clearly imagining the house or is it just a vague idea? When you say a car, so are you clear what color, what model, what shape, what price, etc., etc.? So that is what the meaning of clarity. Sadly, many of us suffer from not very clear thinking. Our thoughts, there's a lot of what we may call confusion, but it's really the thoughts are not very crisp, not very clear. In this, so what he's saying is कि वो कितनी दूरी तक जाएगा और कितने लोगों पे असर करेगा, ये दो चीजों पे डिपेंडेंट है. What is the strength and what is the clarity? So have you seen some political leaders, they give very clear and powerful thoughts and they seem to, instantly energize an entire country. I remember this guy, America में एक president हुआ था Obama. He had this slogan, yes we can, you know, sort of saying that, nothing is impossible for us. Whatever we set out to achieve, we will achieve. So it energized the entire country or at least a large number of people and he was elected, good margin. And our own Modi ji is very good at it. Simple, powerful thoughts and slogans. In this respect, it resembles the voice of a speaker setting in motion waves of sound in the air which radiate from him in all directions and convey his words to all those who are within hearing. And the distance to which his voice can penetrate depends upon its strength and the clearness of his enunciation. So somebody is mumbling, how far can you will his voice carry? As compared to somebody who speaks each word very, very clearly, something like that. Again, just as the speaker's voice may fall upon heedless ears where men are already engaged in business or in pleasure, so may a strong wave of thoughts sweep past without affecting the mind of a man if he is already wholly engrossed in some other line of thought. So there is the concept of receptivity also. If somebody is speaking the nice clear thoughts, streaming that, or let's talk about speech, somebody is speaking but you're, you have headphones on and you're listening to something else, it doesn't matter how good the speaker is, you are going to miss it. Many men, however, do not think definitely or strongly except when in the immediate prosecution of some business that demands their whole attention, so that there are always within reach many minds that are likely to be considerably affected by the thoughts which impinge upon them. So when somebody is mentally concentrating on something and someone else is streaming out thought, that person may not catch it at all. But he says that most of us or most people in the world, they are not really concentrating. And this is another problem that I see. Concentration, focus, the ability to focus as a mental ability is very, very, very important. One problem is laziness. Another problem is distraction, not being able to focus. And unfortunately, all this social media is making the problem worse. So thoda sa, this is something that I would recommend to all of you. I think all of you are much younger than me in age, so please learn from my experience. Set some time out every day to focus on one thing mentally, एक चीज पे, और उस समय पे no distraction allowed. I mean, if it's an emergency, अलग बात है, but don't look at the phone, don't speak to anybody, don't even lift your eyes. You have a book or whatever it is, focus on that. Maybe close your eyes, just Stay with that thought. Maybe you'll get distracted, bring it back. It is a, like you do physical exercise, same way as you do it, it will get better. I'm sure most of us, pehli baar meditation kiya, mind got distracted. It's with practice that you got better. So please form a habit to concentrate. Maybe only 10 minutes, maybe then increase it to 15, then to 20, then to half an hour. Take a thought, stay with that thought, do not get distracted. Maybe a crossword puzzle, maybe this, maybe that, whatever it is. बट एक चीज को लीजिए, उस पे दिमाग को एकाग्र, what master calls one pointedness. Practice one pointedness. Sorry, I keep slipping into lectures. The action of this undulation is highly adaptable. It may exactly reproduce itself if it finds a mental body which readily responds to it in every particular. Particular here means detail. But when this is not the case, it nevertheless produces a decided effect along lines broadly similar to its. So what he's saying is, when somebody sends out, so for example, a person X is sending out some thought, he's thinking something. So when he's thinking something, he's sending out that thought. When it comes and hits my mental body, if my mental body has those patterns of thought, you remember we talked about patterns of thought? If I have those previous patterns of thought, that thought may exactly reproduce itself. Even if I don't have the exact same pattern, some effect will be produced. Now he gives an example. Suppose, for example, that a Catholic kneels in devotion before an image of the Blessed Virgin, Mother Mary, or in our case, let's say Lord Krishna. So I am, or Archana ji is praying to Lord Krishna. She sends rippling from her in all directions. I'm paraphrasing. In all directions, strong devotional vibrations. So the mental matter that is going into vibration, it is of the class of devotion. If they strike upon the mental or astral body of another Krishna Bhakt, they will arouse in him a thought and feeling identical with the original. I hope you are able to follow with me. I'm paraphrasing. तो जो जना सोच रहा था वो कृष्ण भगवान की सोच रहा था, दूसरा कृष्ण भक्त के पास वो विचार पहुंचा, तो जो वो विचार सोच रहा था करीब करीब वही रिप्रोड्यूस हो जाएगा, ऑलमोस्ट एग्जैक्टली. बट इफ दे शुड स्ट्राइक अपॉन अ हिंदू ऑफ सम अदर सेक्ट, लेट्स से अ शिव भक्त to whom the image of Lord Krishna is unfamiliar, they will still awaken in him the sentiment of devotion, but it will follow along its accustomed channel and be directed perhaps towards Lord Shiva. Are you understanding? तो कृष्ण भक्त ने विचार, वो भक्ति कर रहे हैं तो वो विचार रेडिएट कर रहे हैं भक्ति का, वो जब दूसरे भक्त पे पड़ा जो कृष्ण भक्त नहीं है, जो लेटर से बिल्कुल कृष्ण जी को जानता ही नहीं है, और वो तो लेट्स से शिव भक्त है, तो उसके अंदर भी डिवोशन की फीलिंग आएगी, लेकिन क्योंकि उसके अंदर जो पैटर्न्स बने हुए हैं वो शिव जी की आकृति की तरफ बने हुए हैं, तो वो उधर उसके अंदर जो विचार आएगा, अरे शिव भगवान, समथिंग लाइक दैट. आई होप दिस इज नॉट हार्ड टू फॉलो. In the same way, if they should touch a Muslim, they would arouse in him devotion to Allah, while in the case of a Hindu, the object might be Krishna, and in the case of a Parsi, Ahura Mazda. I hope I pronounced it correctly. But they would excite devotion of some sort wherever there was a possibility of response to that idea. So when you read this, you understand why in our society people have these, bhajan mandalis. People organize bhajan and kirtan on a regular basis. Why? We believe that doing the twin heart meditation, we are to some extent changing the vibration of the world. People do Sundar Kand. I don't know if you're aware of it, but in our region, this is very popular. When something happens, they say, let's do a Sundar Kand part. Or, in our house, for example, we are fond of calling the Gayatri, there is a school which practices bhajan on the Gayatri mantra and Havan also. So we call them and they perform for us. If, however, they should touch the mental body of a materialist to whom the very idea of devotion in any form is unknown, they would still produce an elevating effect. Elevating means upar uthane wala. So somebody who's not into devotion, not, koi astik hai, non-believer in God, even in his body, of course, no specific thought will come, but it will lift him slightly. They could not at once create a type of vibration to which the man was wholly unaccustomed. So, because he's not used to that way of thinking, वो विचार तो नहीं आएगा. But their tendency would be to stir a higher part of his mental body into some sort of activity, and the effect, though less permanent than in the case of the sympathetic recipient, could not fail to be good. Yeah. So also we see the benefit of blessing. Many people may have doubts. Blessing से क्या फर्क पड़ता है? Sending out positive thoughts. I remember once one of the acharyas, he said, instead of, when somebody cuts you on the road, instead of abusing that person, you say, may you be blessed with good driving skills. Something like that. The action of an evil or impure thought is governed by the same laws. So we took an example, हमने भक्ति के एक विचार का हमने example लिया. We took the example of a devotional thought. But if it was a vile or a evil thought, again similar effect will happen. A man who is so foolish as to allow himself to think of another with hatred or envy radiates a wave tending to provoke similar passions in others. And though his feeling of hatred be for someone quite unknown to these others, so that it is impossible for them to share it, that means they will not have the same thought because they don't know that person. I'm sitting here and say, I'm not, but I'm projecting hate to somebody, but none of you may know that person. But still, it will affect you. So the same thought will not come. You will not think of hatred for that same person because you don't even know the person. Yet the radiation will stir in them an emotion of the same nature towards a totally different person. Yeah. So in India, we used to have this problem of कि उसको नजर लग जाएगी. Yes, have you heard of this? नजर लग जाएगी. Bad eye, क्या? The bad evil eye may set upon you. Why? Somebody is projecting thoughts towards you with not a good intention. The work of the thought form is more limited but much more precise than that of the undulation. So here we were looking at the vibration. Vibration means, so there are two parts. There is the thought form and there is the energy inside the thought form. So अभी जो हम discuss कर रहे थे the effect of the energy. But now maybe we'll start from here on the next session. Next one, we will look at the thought form itself. All right. We'll try to understand the effect of the thought form. So I hope you are finding the language quite simple. By theosophical standards, the language is quite simple. Sometimes the language in theosophical books is quite complicated, but here it is quite simple. So may I request, if you get the time, because you have a day's gap and this is a small book, just read up to the end. So then we can spend more time in discussion, more time in some experiments. I had planned some experiments for today, but I think I got caught up in talking about different things. तो इसलिए इतना टाइम नहीं रहा. Maybe let's do one simple small experiment, okay, about the clarity of a thought. Let's try to experiment. So we need volunteers. Somebody will volunteer, somebody with the camera on, or if you volunteer then please turn your camera on. People with camera on, any volunteers? Okay, so Rajni is the volunteer. Now everybody please sensitize your hands, and please do it, please sensitize your hand. Please sensitize, because we are trying to scan. Look, we are going to try to scan a thought form. It's not simple. It's not so your fingers will need to be really sensitive. All right, so can we just scan? Can you, all of you, scan Rajni? Can you scan her inner aura? All right, so Rajni, just have this thought, something vague. Yeah, generally world is nice. आज का दिन कैसा था? हाँ, ठीक था. Something nice, something not so nice. Just keep repeating that thought. So please, can you scan this thought form coming from Rajni? How was her day today? She's saying, ठीक था,
Aura
everything
less.
great.
Aura has become less.
Let's not scan the aura. Let's just scan the thought form. You say, I tune into this thought form. Okay. All right. Let's just flick. Now, let me ask you, Rajni, something specific that you did today. Can you think about that? You don't have to tell us. Just think about that. Something that, see it very clearly in your mind. Very, very clearly. Let's tune into this thought. Keep thinking that over and over again. See it very clearly in your mind. The people who are scanning, keep telling yourself, I tune into the thought form she created about one specific incident.
It's increasing.
So generally देखिए, vague thoughts होंगे, unspecific thoughts होंगे versus a very clear specific thought. You will see the difference in the energy of the thought form. You can also try this yourself during the day. You take any thought, you scan it at, it's 2 o'clock right now. You scan it at say 5 minutes past 2. Then you keep thinking that thought for 10 minutes. Just sit and think that thought over and over again. And then after 10 minutes, scan that thought again. You should be able to see the increase in the thought. Do another experiment. Write it down a few times. And then scan that thought form again.
Want me to think negative first?
I'm sorry?
You want me to think negative first or any sentence?
No, I'm not asking you to think anything right now. You do this after the session, but just do this during the day, and you just see, that what we have learned in this book. It is very, very practical. And if you, I don't know if all of us have done the Kriya Shakti course, but this is what we learned in Kriya Shakti.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's end our session. Any Anything to discuss? Any?
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yes, please.
सर जैसे हमने अभी स्टडी किया कि मेंटल बॉडीज ऑफ स्पेशली द पीपल लिविंग इन विसिनिटी, जो घर में रहते हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल एक फैमिली है, तो
Mhm.
उनकी मेंटल बॉडीज इंटरैक्ट करती हैं एंड द वाइब्रेशंस कॉज्ड इन आवर मेंटल बॉडीज विल डेफिनेटली अफेक्ट देयर मेंटल बॉडीज.
Right.
तो उस हिसाब से हम लोग ये समझ सकते हैं कि why a particular family has a certain pattern of thinking, उनकी मेंटालिटी सेम क्यों होती है, उनकी हैबिट सेम क्यों होती है. बट समटाइम्स ऐसा होता है कि एक फैमिली का सबका एक जैसा सोचने का तरीका होता है, बट वन पर्सन मे बी एनीबडी वो अलग सोचता है, वो उन लोगों से कंप्लाई नहीं करता है, उन लोगों से डिफर करता है बहुत सारी चीजों में, एंड ही मेंटेन्स सॉर्ट ऑफ हिज प्योरिटी ऑफ थॉट. So there are two things. There must be some other factors which makes him different. So वहाँ पे कोई और चीजें भी हैं जो उसका thought pattern बना रही है, apart from being influenced by other people's thoughts. And secondly, what exactly helps him to maintain his own peculiarity? और वो environment से इफेक्ट नहीं होता है, या अपनी खुद की फैमिली से भी उतना इफेक्ट नहीं होता है. वो क्या है जो उसको अलग, मतलब कभी कभी होता है ना, एक खराब फैमिली होती है लेकिन उसमें से एक बड़ा अच्छा आदमी होता है. तो ये थोड़ा सा समझना था.
So again, it's a question of quantum. And then there are many factors here. One factor is, so let's say, let's take an example. एक family है, उसमें this young chap, young boy, he's a boy or child is growing up and is naturally influenced by the thought patterns of his parents, his general family. जैसे family सोचती है वैसा उसकी conditioning हो रही है. But he goes to school, he is exposed to books, he comes across something, he sees a film, for example, and something in the film starts a train of thought. And he thinks about it repeatedly. Now, this pattern starts becoming strong. Finally, you have to understand that at the mental plane, it is more what we do and less. So again, question of quantum. जो बाहर का environment का हम पे असर है, that is less than the effect of our own thinking. We may blame, oh, because my family thinks like that, so I think like this. But finally, each one of us, physically we may have constraints. Emotionally and mentally, the choice is always ours. What thought you are holding, the choice you may not have made, but you had the choice to make. आपके ऊपर आपकी मर्जी है कि आप वो choice choose करो या नहीं करो. Now, so coming back to our example, this young person now has had another influence, and that influence somehow maybe, so there is the question of sanskar, which I think we didn't talk about today, but we talked about the causal body and the causal body accumulating things from the mental activity. Those are what we call sanskar, and they are, so now this child already had those sanskar, they were like seeds. But now when he is exposed to, say, a film or a show or a book or a teacher or some friend, and he gets those vibrations, those sanskars start blooming, and he somehow it agrees with him, so he thinks about it again and again and again, and that becomes now his completely independent form of thinking. Related to this is the concept of freedom. Physically, we may not have complete freedom. I mean, I'm in Jaipur, you are in, I think, Jamshedpur, and somebody is somewhere. But physically, we have a constraint. But mentally, emotionally, freedom means what you are thinking, what you are feeling. Is it because of your conditioning? Is it because of your environment? Or is it because, you believe that this is the right thing to do? It is the correct thing to do. So when I was talking about laziness and lack of clarity, this is another complaint of mine, an observation that most of us, we allow ourselves to our freedom of thought to be taken away from us. We abandon, and now it's getting actually worse in this age of social media, where this is conspiracy theories and things like that are really becoming very powerful. All right.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other question or anything to discuss? I mean, I'm sure this is, all of us think. So if you have any thoughts on thinking, please do share. No, all right. So then let's end our session with a short prayer.